Okay, I want to talk about knowledge. How do we get knowledge? The only way we can know anything is either through empirical or non-empirical knowledge. Empirical knowledge is what we actually experience ourselves, it's experience. Non-empirical is what others have written down that we read about, which is really just their empirical knowledge. So really it's all just empirical if it's our experiences or reading about somebody else's experiences. So anytime that anybody ever writes anything, they are really going off of either their own experience or they're going off of books that they have read, which is other people's experience. And so anytime a book is written, it's always based on other books, but it's that person's experience along with that knowledge that they read about of those other people's experience put together with theirs, and then you get another experience or another book, and you write that down to pass it on to the next people. And so the only way we can really know anything is true is either to experience or to read about it, or both. And that's really what it's all about, is experiencing. I mean, everybody is an individual. Everybody has a different experience. And so even if it's just slightly, I mean, it can be very similar to somebody else's, but even if it's just slightly different, everybody has a different experience. And then you take that together with the way they perceive that experience. Not everybody perceives the experience the same way. Even if they had the exact same experience, they're not all going to perceive it the same way. You can look at things from different angles. And so there you have individuals who have not all exactly the same experience. It could be very similar. But then you have different perspectives and points of view on top of that. And so then you have a whole nother way of writing that to tell someone else. And you have, insights of your own. You have a God-given revelations and knowledge and insights about those experiences or about that information. And so knowledge is a very interesting thing. Even if we go back and read history books, because we weren't there. I mean, we were not there. We did not see these things happen. So the only way that we can know, we really can't know for sure. We have to trust what those people have told us happened, that saw it and that were there. That's the only way we can really know for sure if it happened or it didn't happen. And the more sources that we read and the more evidence we see from different people, we have two people saying the same thing and another person saying something different or totally different. If it's totally different, like this did happen, this didn't happen, if two people say it happened and one person says it didn't happen, we're going to go with the one that the two people said, because there's more weight when you have more witnesses. It's more of a, there's just more likely that it happened the way those two than the way this one person said. Not always true, but that's what we tend to go with is, however many witnesses there are. And so the more and more and more people that write about this event that happened this way, we would go with that more than just the one person that said it differently. And there are slight differences because of perspective, like I said before. Everybody has a different view, or some people think and this is more important than the other. You look at the Gospels and the way that they wrote about the same thing. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, they all wrote about the same experience, but just with different points of view, because some things were more important to them or jumped out to them and they wrote it down than the other. Because we all come with our different experiences and our different backgrounds, and that's what makes us so unique. On top of that, you take just one individual person, and that one individual from day to day is not going to have the same experience every time. Something that works for me today may not work for me tomorrow or a year from now. Each time that I do something, say each time that I go on a special diet or do a cleanse or do a fast or do a colonic, I'm going to have a different experience. I'm not going to have the exact experience every single time. So what I think is so neat about science is that science, to me, I just think about experiments. I think about experimenting, because you're getting to experience something on purpose. You're experimenting with it, and you are getting to see what is going to happen, and you write those things down. You document it so that you'll remember and you can have it recorded. And it's just a very, what would happen if I only ate grapes for a month? I mean, you could do anything. You can take an experiment. I don't know, that's exciting to me. I don't know why, but just because I get to see what would happen, Now we try to make sure we don't do anything dangerous, but, things like that, it's just like, well, what would happen? And just document it. And what's so great about it too is that you're not saying, I'm going to live this way forever. You're just saying, I just want to experiment. Be an experimentation. Do it on yourself. You have this live, awesome machine here that God created, that He gave you, that is just, scientists can't even figure it all out. We don't understand nobody understands the whole digestive process. Nobody can remake an eyeball. No one can give you a fake eye that works. I mean, it's incredible. So we just have this incredible machine. You have one of your own. You can experiment on it. And I just think that's an awesome gift to be able to do that. And I've done several experiments on myself. From fasting to, just special diets, way of exercising, and it never gets old. It never gets old because, like I said, there's always some new experience to experience. And that's why when I try to talk to people, all I can tell them is what I have experienced and what I've read. And I've read a lot. I've watched a lot of health documentaries. I've read a lot of books. I have experienced things for myself. I've done a lot of research, putting different pieces of books and information or other people's recorded stuff together, done that research over the last 20 years. And so, and it takes time to do that, so you don't learn everything in one day, and you don't experience everything in one day, and it's just fun. Life is a journey. It should be, anyway. It should be a journey that we can go on, and that's why I can't tell one individual, this is the plan for you, because everybody is different, and we all come from different backgrounds and different experiences, and we have a different makeup. Now, having said that, we all do have one thing in common, and that is that we are a human being. And there are certain things, the basic foundation, fundamental things that is good for a human being. And I should say maybe a healthy human being, because when we are in a sick state, we have to take certain precautions. We can't just eat anything, even if it's really good and healthy for us. I mean, there might be something really good and healthy and God made it for us, but when we eat it, we get sick because we're trying to put that really good food, that awesome food God gave us, we're trying to put that into a sick system, a system that is confused, a system that's not right. So we have to work through it in different ways before it gets healthy. And then then the body, when it's healthy, when the body is truly healthy, it should be able to take in anything that God made for it, that was good for it, that He gave to us, for us to be for us to enjoy and continue in health. But our different experiences, even like being born, the day you're born, I was thinking about this yesterday, the day you're born, you're not starting from scratch. You're not really brand new. You are, but you're really not, because everything from the time that egg and that sperm got together, you have all your mother's experience and all your father's experience. Not only that, you have all her mother and father, all those ancestors bringing all those things, the choices that they made. Now think about this, because this will help you when you make choices for your posterity or your children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren. When that egg and sperm come together, all of her ancestors, all the choices that they made in the way that they ate, the way that they lived, the way that they, the environment they were in, the emotional environment they were in, for your mind, all that stuff comes with that egg, and all of his stuff, all his ancestors, all the things that they ate and the way they lived and the things they did, the way they worked, the amount of stress that they had, the emotional scars and baggage or whatever, all that comes together to make a new person. That person is not starting out from scratch. That person is starting out with all those two sides of ancestors. And that's why when God talks about that, he talks about that in his word. And that's why it's important, no man is an island. You can't say, well, it's only going to affect me what I put in my body. That is not true. It affects not only your grandchildren, great-grandchildren, your posterity, if you care about them and you want to pass on something good to them, but it also affects you today and affects others around you by the way that you act, because the food that you eat is going to affect your mood and your social and the way you act and everything. And if you're eating right and you're healthy, you have so much more life in you to give. You can get insights, like I was talking about, insights to give others. And you come up with ideas that you wouldn't come up with if you were sitting here just with an aching stomach or a bad headache or a cold. I mean, you're down. You're not up and active and operational and prospering and thinking new things. That you don't have time for that whenever you're sick. You can barely even live normal life, much less try to better the world and yourself. So going back to just being, an individual thing. We come as individuals to if an individual comes to me and asks me something, all I can really tell you is what I know is basic and true and good for most human beings. And where I get that from, I start with the Word of God, because he gave us his word to know the truth. His word is truth. Thy word is truth. And so true about anything, if it's food or the way to live or anything, whatever is true. And so I start there in Genesis chapter 1, verse 26, I believe it is, where he talks about the very first thing that he gave Adam and Eve to eat. And you start there, and then you look throughout the Bible and you see the different ways that they ate, or anything that had to do with food. And so you say, okay, for basic human needs, every human being was made, whenever you create something, just say you created something, and you know what it's like. Cars, for instance. Okay, these manufacturers, they make cars, and they know what that car needs to run on. They know what it needs to operate. It needs a certain kind of fuel. It needs other things too, oil, and it needs, antifreeze, and, all these different things in case something, it gets too cold. It needs this, it needs that. We know what all goes in that vehicle. God created us, and he knows what kind of fuel we need, what all these different, things that we need, to lubricate us and to make us not be too cold or too hot. I mean, there are things that God made. I just think it's fascinating. It's so exciting to me. And most people don't even think about how, that food actually does either make you well or make you sick. I mean, what you put in your body, it just seems so basic, and simple to understand that if I put water in my gas tank, I'm not going to get very far. If I put sugar in my gas tank, I'm really not going to get anywhere. So what kind of fuel you put in the machine to make it run, it has to be what it was created for. It has to fit. And when we don't put those right things in there, we're not going to get very far. Actually, we're probably going to digress and get problems and disease. And so I can tell you the basic human need, what all humans, were created to eat, and how they were created to live, because God has showed us that, and through my own experience. But I've learned that there are also, you have to take it on such an individual basis, especially if a person is sick. I mean, and most people are. They have some kind of disease or something in their life they don't want, they wish would be taken away, especially the older we get. And so, I mean, it could be something as simple as, I have bad hair, even if it wasn't a health issue. I mean, the beauty part is the last part to get any help, because the body has to take care of all the vital stuff first, So it could be, wanting to not have to wear contacts anymore, or having better skin, better fingernails, or whatever. It doesn't have to be a bad disease, but there's always somebody who either wants to get rid of something or wants to add something and make it better. So we can always all be bettering ourselves, and better memory. I mean, who doesn't want that? Just to be sharper, So anytime that a person is wanting to, especially when they're sick, trying to get rid of a disease, it is such an individual basis, because we could tell them all the things that, yes, this is the manual for human beings. This is what is good for human beings. But if we do that with a sick person, they might not be able to handle all of that. Now, when they're healthy and they get well, they can. But you have to start out with where they're at. And I love that, because that's what Jesus does. He starts out with us, even spiritually. He starts out with us where we're at, and he gradually works on us until we come to the point of being well. He makes us whole, makes us well. He doesn't just say, well, you got to start over here doing what a healthy person would do. No, it doesn't work that way. You can't. Your body will go into shock, not only your body, but your mind. You cannot wrap your mind around doing that, because it's just not, you can't go from point A to point B like that. And Jesus knows that. So he starts us out where we're at, whether it be health-wise, food-wise, or it is a spiritual thing, like getting rid of a bad habit. It could be lust. It could be homosexuality. It could be, drinking, smoking. It could be any kind of sin in your life that you are living in, not one that you just fell and got up, but one that you're living that way. Maybe it's the nightlife. Maybe it's promiscuity or whatever. And he takes us where we're at, and he just, I love it, because he just works on us a little at a time, quickly. It's amazing how quickly it happens, but it's one little strand at a time. We've got our mess. We've got ourselves wrapped up in this mess, like one of those, strings that's all knotted up. And he just, one little piece at a time, he works on it, and he just takes it all apart, and before you know it, you got this nice string again, and it's straight, and it's not tangled, and it's not a mess. And because Jesus knows, he's smart, and he's loving, and he's patient, and he's kind, and he knows that if you were to just go in there and just make it happen overnight, or just make it happen right away, it would actually hurt us. If you think about, say a person, I saw one time on one of these I think it was one of those Discovery Health shows, and they were doing these crazy operations where people were crazy. This guy came in, and he had a machete stuck in his skull. I mean, this big, huge knife just stuck in his skull, and the doctors were like, how are we going to get this out? Because they knew if they just pulled it right out, say you have something stuck in your heart, a knife, you just pull it right out, you're going to bleed to death. There is a certain procedure and a certain method that they had to do to get that knife out. Now, we know that knife did not need to be stuck in his skull, okay? He was walking around like that. People thought it was for Halloween or something, too early. And I don't remember how it happened to him, but, we know that's not good. That needed to come out. But we also know if we just pulled it out, that he would bleed to death. There had to be a certain method and a certain procedure, and that's the same way that Jesus does with our behavior, with sin, with whatever's in our life. He doesn't just go yank it out, because he knows we would bleed to death. We can't handle that. It would shock us. It would destroy us. He knows that things have to be done a little at a time, and he works on us. One really good way of pointing that out is the one time I saw on TV, it was on the 700 Club, and they were talking about this, this lady was giving her testimony, and I think this is just a beautiful way that Jesus works on us, because I've seen it in my own life too. And her situation was that she was in a homosexual relationship. She was a lesbian, and her partner, they lived together, they slept together, but they started going to this church. I guess they started feeling the need to be drawn closer to God, so they started going to this church together, and the amazing thing was that everybody in that church, I'm just so thankful that she went to a church like this, because everybody in that church was non-condemning. I mean, it was obvious what they were. They were a pair. And nobody condemned them. Nobody talked bad about them. Nobody sent them out of the church. Now, they did not say that what they were doing was right. They didn't make provision for it and say, yeah, you're okay. It's okay what you're doing. They did not say it was okay. They strongly, obviously, were against that, because God's word is against it. But the people there, they loved them. There was an elderly couple, which really surprises me, an elderly couple that befriended them and became really good friends with them, and mentored them and helped them and loved them. And she said that over time, they both started feeling that they shouldn't be having sex together anymore, but they still slept in the same bed together. So you can see how these stages go. I love this, because first of all, God took away their desire, I guess, for, or they were convicted. They felt that they didn't need to have sex together, but they still slept in the same bed. Then they felt like they shouldn't sleep in the same bed anymore. They started to feel, and this was over a period of 3 months, which is really pretty quickly, but it wasn't overnight. I mean, God didn't just do it overnight and say, oh, you don't need to be in this relationship, yank you out, you have to just cold turkey. He worked with them. He worked on their heart through those wonderful people. I'm so glad. But one started sleeping in another bed in another room, the other one started sleeping in different rooms, and then over a little bit longer, they decided they didn't need to live together anymore, and so they didn't live in the same house. And then after a little, now, as that day that she was talking, she said, now, we live in different states away from each other across the country, and not because, she said, we're still friends, but we don't talk to each other anymore or anything. She said it's just too, it's just too hard to do that, because you're afraid you might fall back into it. Now, we care about each other, we love each other as friends, and, if I saw her on the street, I would be totally, happy to see her, and, there's no bad feeling. We just know that we had to go our separate ways, and it wasn't safe for them to even be in the same town. So, because they didn't want to fall back into that. And the other thing that she said, and this is what I always remember, and I love this, she said that God, little over time, over those 3 months, from them sleeping together to not even living in the same state, over 3 months, that is all the time that took, but it wasn't overnight. And this is what she said. She said, God just, she said we were so, like a relationship is, even any relationship, we're so tight, and so our lives were so entangled and interwoven together that, she said God began unraveling all that we had done one bit at a time. And he had undone the mess we made. And that's the way I think about it. That's the way I think about sin and some of the things in my life. He takes this mess and he just starts to unravel it one piece at a time. Everything that, those decisions and choices we made and got ourselves in this situation, he starts to take steps back and unravel it. It's just beautiful. It's just awesome. And when he does that, he does it so carefully, like a surgeon. Just like a surgeon. I mean, just this little piece and that little piece, and careful and patient, but it's amazing how fast it can actually happen. And I've seen it in my own life, and just taking those bad habits out of our life, because habits are just a really crazy thing. Habits I thank God for habits, good habits, because habits are awesome. We always think of habit in the bad sense of a bad habit, but there are good habits. And if we can replace our bad habits with good habits, wow. I mean, I don't even feel like I can take credit for the good things that I do anymore, even though, I really can't take credit for it, because God is the one that gives us the power to even make the right choice, or even have the desire to make the right choice. But even though I do make those choices, God said that he would reward us according to what our deeds deserve. And James says that with faith without works is dead. It's a dead faith. So, I mean, there are action and works that need to come with it. But I don't even feel like I can give myself credit for it when I get into the habit, because that good habit is automatic. You don't even have to think about it. It's just automatic. You're on autopilot. It just automatically happens. You don't even think about it. You don't even remember, did I do that? Because I don't even remember doing it. It just happened. I just did it. I just got up and did my exercise routine. It was over. I mean, the very first time I did it, it seemed like it took forever, and it was so hard. And now, I don't even remember if I think I got through it, and I did it, and it was nothing. It was so easy. Habits are so awesome because they just automate everything. You don't even have to think about it. It becomes second nature. So if we can get those bad habits out, and this is the same thing with bad habits, it's automatic. You know, it's so hard to stop. My husband was telling me about this guy the other day, and he said that, you know, he smoked for like 40-something years, and then he quit. Like, cold turkey, he just quit doing it. Now, sometimes God takes things away. Cold turkey, just quit, you know. And he said every morning he would have his coffee and his cigarettes, you know, nicotine and caffeine. and you know, while he was sitting at the table, he said now every morning when he has his coffee, he says he automatically, when he gets done drinking that cup of coffee, he fills his shirt pocket. Every time, he said, he just, and that shows you that's a true habit. You know, I mean, you just automatically, your hand goes to your shirt pocket because that's what you did for 40 years. So it's never going to probably stop. I mean, it would take another probably 20 years to stop, you know. It's just a habit. And so good habits are your best friend. They're awesome to have. So if you can make those good habits, you know, there's two things in the Bible that I am reminded of that Jesus said. And when you're trying to make a new habit or do something new, one of those things is when he talked about that there was this man that had that, you know, the house wasn't clean. In other words, the body, you know, wasn't clean, the body and mind. I think he had demons or spirits in him, and he said, if you clean the whole house up, but you don't put any, you know, clean all the bad out, but you don't put the good in, if you don't put anything good in, then 7 more spirits were going to come, and then that condition of that man will be worse than it was in the beginning. He'll be worse off than he used to be, because if we just take all the bad out of our life, but we don't put anything good in, if we take all the bad television out, and the bad music out, and the bad food out, and the bad entertainment out, but we don't put anything good in, if we don't put good television in, good music in, good food in, we're just going to sit there empty. It's going to be like an empty, void place for all these spirits to come back in and take over and set up residence. Like, wow, it's all empty now. There's got to be something that's, you know, some kind of law that says that if there's an empty space, something's going to fill it. I promise you. Just if I ever cleaned out one spot in my backyard or one spot in my room, it's not going to stay that way. I have to work at keeping it that way because something's going to fill it. You know, somebody's going to ask if they can set something there, or they're going to set something there, or use it, or whatever. It's hard to keep an empty space. It's just like there's got to be a law about, you know, taking up that empty space. And so that's what Jesus was saying. If it's empty, you can't leave it empty. Something's going to come back. And you might keep it clean for a little while, but something's going to come back. So you got to put the good stuff in to take up the room. You can't just take bad out. You got to put good in. And then the other thing that he used to say, I can't remember right now, that he used to say, that he said, that he says today, is that, what was it? I'll have to pause it. Okay, the other thing that Jesus says is he says that if a man drinks new wine, he is not going to automatically or immediately like it. He's going to say that the old was better. And what he means by that is whenever we eat a new food or do something new, a new behavior, we're not automatically immediately going to like it. Our preferences change. But that we don't automatically change preferences. We're going to say that the old is better. We're going to say the old way of doing things, my old behavior, my old everything is better than this new stuff. So he doesn't immediately desire the new. And that's something we need to keep in mind and be patient with ourselves. You know, God is more patient with us than we are with ourselves. So, you know, a man doesn't automatically, immediately like the new wine. He says the old is better. And we know what old wine is. It causes you to be drunk. And new wine is grape juice, and it's good for you. And so we don't automatically, you know, if you give a guy grape juice who's laying out drunk on the park bench, you know, and say, oh, this is the really good stuff. He's like, are you crazy? It's not the good stuff. I like the rotten stuff. And so we replace those old preferences with new good preferences. We replace those old habits, those bad habits, with new good habits. And it just takes time. So be patient with yourself. And I've talked about where I'm coming from as far as knowledge goes, and what I hope to give you in the future. I want to talk next about where that knowledge begins as far as health goes. And it begins in Genesis chapter 1, verse 26, where these human beings that God created, he first tells us the very first food that he gave to Adam and Eve to be their fuel for them. So that's where I want to start off next. Thanks for listening.